This is Jessi Arts, and she came to our guild last year and the year before, and does wonderful paintings, a lot of plein air, and oil painting, and she was actually born Jessi Arts. That's her name. What a fun name. And she's going to talk about her, how she got interested in art, and then she's going to do a painting for us. So, thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. So light. Light always captures our attention. We quickly pull out our phones and we see a beautiful sunset, or a sunlit forest path, or a sunbreak in the storm. I'm Jessi, and I'm an oil painter here in the Pacific Northwest. I love capturing the effect of light in my oil paintings. I believe it captures the audience and creates such interest. As you can see a few of my oil paintings, I love creating the effect of light, and it draws a person in, and it creates a soft emotion. So a couple of days ago, I had a photo on my camera roll of a path I was walking down, and a couple days ago I finally got to painting it. This really captured my eye because of how the morning sunlight was coming across the field. And as you can see, it's not just one color of green. And the clouds also are lighted on one side. And I can show you the photo that was inspired by.
Oh.
So that's what drew my attention, and that's what I wanted to capture in my painting. So I'm going to be doing a demo today. I may or may not finish the painting, as sometimes the painting takes a couple hours, but I would like to go step by step on my oil painting process. Plein air is generally a quicker painting, as a few of these are actually my plein air paintings. I was doing those during the Strata Easel Challenge, if you ever heard of that. So these all took about 2.5 to 3 hours painting on site. I want to go over a couple of supplies I use. So for plein air painting, it is important to use a canvas that has a solid background. This is because you don't want any light coming through when you're painting. You'll throw your colors off. So I love painting in a 12 by 16. Because you're going to be plein air painting, might as well go for a larger size. It takes about the same amount of time mixing your paint colors and putting them on canvas. But if you do love painting smaller sizes, you can do 6 by 8s, 5 by 7s, or 8 by 10s. I have a few other examples of plein air paintings I had. This is a good example of light. Here you can see the contrast of the tree trunks going against the light, and then my lines are showing where the sunlight is coming from. This is another one, and this is a plein air painting. And what caught my eye is the distant field being lit up. Here I'm in the shadow looking towards the field. And you can see all the different angles and the tree branches drawing me in to the painting.
Could we see?
Yes, sorry.
Maybe a little higher. Thank you.
All right. Delete one more.
Do you varnish your paintings?
Yes, I do. And this is another plein air painting. Now this is a sunset painting, so plein air and sunsets are really challenging. I had to
How did you do that?
It's like you're standing.
I had to mix my oil paints really quickly because the sun goes down really quickly. On my Facebook page, I do have pictures of the process of how I quickly put down my paints and then blend it in. But I love this day because it just finished raining, and the glare of the headlights was reflecting on the road.
Very nice. But how did you do that without getting yourself hit by a car?
Oh, I changed the perspective a bit. I had a same perspective, but I did use perspective lines to create the painting. But no, I did not get hit by a car. So many of you may be wondering what got me into painting. Well, I've always loved drawing as a child. I remember my mom buying me crayons and Crayola markers and drawing every day. And then at the age of 12, I decided to venture into oil paints. And that is a totally different world. I love how oil paints lay on the canvas and they have such vivid colors and have a deep meaning into them. So the Pacific Northwest has many beautiful sights. And this is what also inspired me to get into more landscape oil paintings. We could go to the ocean, and I've done several plein air paintings there. We could go to Mount Hood, or we have beautiful rolling hills, or going along I-5, we have flat fields. So I encourage you all as artists to go out into the world and venture into plein air painting, because it opens up your eyes to see something else besides in your studio. You look at a color, as in this example, and there's blue in this tree. Generally, you think of a tree trunk as just being brown, but there's beautiful shades of blue. So today, I was asked to bring a photograph to help you guys visualize what I see in the real world and what I'm going to be painting. So this is a picture I took while walking out through a meadow. And you can quickly see how this captures your eye, because I'm in the shadow and I'm looking towards the light. So this is what I'm going to be working on today. I'm going to be changing a few things because I love doing that in my studio, adding a few inspiration. So I might want to add a few hills in the background. I'm going to maybe be changing the shading a bit, maybe add a few more highlights to this tree. So that is what I'm going to be trying today, see how far along I get in this painting, but hopefully you all will get the concept. Another thing besides boards is oil paints. Now you can use any kind of oil paint. Generally speaking, the more expensive oil paints have less linseed oil because linseed oil is really inexpensive. This is just Artist Loft first grade, the first level. But it works fine for me, yes.
I actually used Artist Lock watercolor back in the day, and now how long do those take to dry?
Depends how thick you apply it.
Oh, okay. 'Cause I use acrylics. I use acrylics on my paintings. I just flash some mark to the cheek, and what I do is I use it.
Well, maybe we'll have to let her talk now.
All right, thank you. What else do I use? I love using turpentine to clean my brushes, and also, you don't want to use too much, but you can thin down your oil paints to apply a thin layer. Or you can use liquid. I love using liquid, and it helps dry my painting a lot quicker. This is actually something I used for this painting because I needed to do a lot of blending, and I needed my paints dry up fairly quickly while painting. So this helped me achieve that goal.
So mixing it with that?
Yes, I mix my oil paints with this. Just apply a little bit. And then also linseed oil. Linseed oil does the opposite effect. It actually slows down my painting process. Especially if I'm doing portraiture, this actually helps mixing in my skin tones. All right, I want to talk about a few things about a painting. So first is composition. How am I laying out my subjects? We have to bring into account the rule of thirds. As in, photography. We got the tic-tac-toe. So over here, my horizon is towards the center. But you usually want it just above or a little bit below. You never want it directly in the center. And this one is slightly higher. And then on the rule of thirds, you can see here, I applied this tree and this tree. And then in the intersecting points, I have this branch coming here, the tree trunk, this one, and then a little bit of interest of leaves here. So we want to apply that to most of our paintings. Over here I have a longer canvas, but you can kind of see how I apply the rule of thirds over there. Next is our perspective. Over here we can see that we are standing on the path, and we are looking into the future. If you've ever been to Multnomah Falls, that's what this painting is, we are slightly looking down, but also looking above. Over here, again, I'm on the pathway. Coming with perspective, we want to have a focal point. And because I love using light, my focal point is usually my brightest area. This allows the audience to be drawn into your painting with perspective lines. And when you are in a gallery or museum, there's painting after painting after painting. What makes the person stop and look at yours? It's the lines, the eye magnets that draw you to the center and make them appreciate all the work that you put into it. If it's just all a flat color, usually people will just pass by and continue looking onto the other painting. And then we want to consider atmosphere and what emotion we want to bring into our painting. And I'll be the first to admit that this takes a lot of years of practice. Even for me, I'm still working on that, to create an emotion. As you can see, this one, it gives me hope. It gives me happiness. Because you're looking towards the future, as they say, the light at the end of the tunnel. And everybody could pull out a story about any painting. But it's the artist's job to give that emotion. All right, I think I'm ready to start painting on this one. So I have a little bit of tape, and hopefully this is going to stay. To give you a basic idea. So first off, when I'm looking at this painting, I see blue, trees, light green, and dark green. Right now, my lines are taking me away out of the painting. So what I would want to focus on is darkening this side of the light and kind of creating a spotlight effect with my sun. So I have a few pre-mixed colors over here, and I'm just going to start. Oh, and it didn't want to stay. Everybody got a good view of this. Okay, I'm gonna leave that. So I got a little bit of titanium white and ultramarine blue. And I'm first going to kind of sketch out where I want my trees. And with the same color, where is my horizon line, where my shadows are going to fall. And I'm using a little bit of liquid, that way this layer dries up a bit. As you know, with the atmosphere, higher up, the sky is darker, and while it comes back to the horizon line, it goes lighter. So I'm going to start with a darker top. I'm going to add a little bit more of ultramarine blue to my paint. I'm going to apply. Now the sky is pretty bland in this photo, and it was a bright, beautiful sunny day, but I do want to add a few clouds. So going along with eye magnets and drawing me in, the shadow of the sun is kind of come at an angle like this. So all these lines are pointing me here, where the light is going to be contrasting against this dark tree. What I want to do with my clouds is actually point them to the same direction to draw the attention towards the center. So my clouds might start off smaller over here and a little larger here. And the farther down we go, the clouds also get smaller. So now I can fill in around where I want my clouds. And this is very loose painting. You don't want to be very intentional with every brush stroke. But every brush stroke has a meaning and a purpose. And you don't want to keep repeating line after line. Hopefully all of you could see.
You step to the left. Perfect. No.
You can see a little bit of what I did.
Yeah, just a little few seconds. Yeah.
All right. Now going down, I'm going to be lightening my colors. One thing with oil paints, which is very interesting to study into, is warm colors and cool colors. The higher up in the sky, we have warmer colors, and the farther, lower and farther that we go into the painting, we're going to be using cool colors because of the atmosphere. Everything is going to appear more blue towards the back. So now, this is the ultramarine, it's a warmer blue. As you can see, I added a little bit of cobalt and phthalo blue, and my colors have already become cool. Yes, a bright.
Thanks.
Thank you.
No, I can't see that one.
Also, if you have any questions during this process, please feel free to ask. Raise your hand.
Do you use those photos from your phone, or do you have a Canon camera?
That is from my phone.
That's from
Most
your.
of the time when I'm walking, you know, you only have your phone on you.
Oh, and then you have it developed into a print and
Yeah.
picture. Do you do that yourself too, or do you send away for that? Or do you have that done?
For the purpose of this demo, I printed them out, but usually, while I'm in my studio, it's all from memory.
Wow.
So I usually don't use photographs in my studio. I might save a few, but I don't generally use photographs. Because oil painting is, you know, comes from the emotion of what you feel at a time. I do know I have a few sunset paintings where I really analyzed all the colors, and then I went home that night after work and painted what I saw. It might not be 100% exact, but it's the general idea of what I saw. And then, the farther down we go, I'm going to go a lot lighter.
I notice your subjects are all landscaping. Is that the primary?
Yes, I
paintings?
love landscapes.
Yeah.
I do some studio work, but
No portraits or anything
I
like
do
that?
portraiture, yes.
Oh,
But I think that'd be too much to kind of bring in right now.
Found that painting portraits was a very different discipline.
oh, I
But I
can imagine.
learned so much by taking a portrait class,
Oh,
that you can use it in anything.
Oh.
But I find that it is a really good way to learn more.
oh,
All right, now that I got my basic color scheme for the sky, I'm gonna go ahead and paint my clouds. Now usually I start off with my brightest color. Be white and a little bit of blue. I'm going to apply my highlights. So my sun is coming from this direction, so my highlights are going to be on that side. I'll give you a chance to see it.
so you have your paintings in different galleries in town or
Yes, I do.
famous ones?
Famous paintings?
Art museum?
Not yet. I'm still living. No, they say an artist gets really famous right after they pass away.
We could help. I think if you paint over and over the same subject, you can get, you know, you do it automatically too.
And now I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of the shadow part to my cloud. Now I want it a little different in the sky color, so I'm adding ultramarine, blue, and burnt umber. And that's an interesting thing with playing with colors. You don't think of brown being in the sky. Yes.
I just wanna let you know that you remind me of Stephen Bowman. He's an artist on, the Grand View. He does the same thing that you're doing.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. I actually watch him on YouTube.
Yeah, he's an amazing artist.
Yeah, you actually do the same thing like he does.
At 12 years old, I was inspired by Bob Ross. So a few of my earlier paintings are the Bob
I
Ross
watch him a
style.
lot. He's a
Yeah.
great artist. He inspired my work.
So now that I've applied my colors, I want to air out my clouds. This is a delicate process where my skies could take me a few minutes or an hour. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask.
How long did it take you to learn to do clouds?
It's an ongoing learning process. Some days I hate them and some days I love them.
That's amazing.
We are our own ox.
Yes, we are.
it helps to be in a guild because it kind of allows you to look at something in a different perspective.
Now, one color I came up with, you want to say I came up with, prime rose and cadmium yellow and white. Makes this very beautiful salmon pink. And I love using this for sunset colors, but I realized when you add a little bit to the clouds, it adds a little bit more character.
So the cadmium yellow, rose,
And primrose
just those
with
two.
white, yes.
Okay.
I think
Is
Let's
what
see,
color is
I'm-
primrose? Is it pink or yellow?
it's red, like
Red,
a
okay,
red
it's
pink.
red.
Yeah.
Great.
So I'm adding a little bit of that.
That's very pretty.
Now I'm seeing it.
And I'm gonna go ahead and blend it in a little bit more.
What do you do if it becomes muddy?
Muddy is a issue between warms and cools fighting over each other. So if I really don't like it, I can scrape it off with a palette knife if I add it too much. Generally, that's what I do. But I try not to go there with fighting with my cools and warms.
In oils, you can't blot it out.
What was that?
In oils, you can't blot it out with like a paper towel.
You can. You could, whatever you need. You could
Because I don't
wipe
use
everything.
oils.
Yeah, you could wipe it off with a paper towel. And I think I'm gonna add a little bit more.
When you're done
Shadow.
an air and you're walking away, how do you protect your painting so that you don't smear the undried areas? Or,
In plein air, you could get plein air boxes,
okay.
and they have slots on the side, and you just slide your painting in.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's-
Or some people just take a pizza box with them. So leave it in the pizza box, put it in the car.
Smart.
I've also heard of artists finishing
After
a.
you eat the pizza.
I've heard of artists finishing a plein air painting and selling it right then and there. And people are like, what am I going to carry it home with? Like, oh, here's the pizza box.
If you have like spare frames that don't look good anymore or whatever, you can also set them backwards in the frame. I just figured that out by accident.
Oh, that's
Nice.
nice. All right, so I got a basic cloud shape. I could work on that a little more, but I'm gonna go ahead and work on my other colors. So from this photo, we have trees and then we have lime green. I generally like going and taking my brightest color and just applying that right where I'm gonna need it, and that is right here. Gives me an idea of how I need to work on my other colors and match this color. So like I said in the photograph, this goes all the way across, but I'm gonna try to just focus my highlight right on here. And then work on other shading and colors. So there, I have my brightest color. And then with the tree in the foreground, it is my darkest color. So this is a mixture of burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of cadmium yellow. But it is a very dark color.
Use burnt umber a lot
Yes, to create my blacks.
and shadows.
Yes, and for shadows, you always want to have warm colors, and highlights are always cool colors. So this is why I'm using ultramarine and burnt umber. I'm also trying to paint sideways. It's a little difficult. So it's a little hard to spread the color. So I'm gonna add a little bit of liquid because burnt umber is generally a drier color, a drier paint. Use a little bit. So now I can see my darkest darks and my lightest lights. So I'm going to start working on the highlights of my foreground tree. And this is where the sunlight is coming across the field, but it's gonna catch a few of my branches. And then go the slightly darker color to kind of blend in.
Are you intentionally using the same, green as in your
In my photograph,
frame? I
um,
know, I mean, as what you laid down for,
yes, because it is my brightest color.
okay.
But I will be blending a few more other
Right.
greens into that.
Wow, look how that blends. That's beautiful.
So you use the liquid to help dry your stuff faster and to make paints less viscous?
Yes, burnt umber is generally just a drier pigment, so it helps. Or I could also use linseed oil.
Oh, I love that softness.
All right, so here we have our lights, and I stopped with the light color over here and my lights here. So this is going to become a darker area, but it is also some of the farthest trees. So I'm going to use the atmospheric roll and go with a blue. Kind of put distance. Make that a little darker. And I'm using a angle brush right now, angle bright. And so I have a few Doug firs. Make it a little darker. Now, Doug firs are quite interesting looking at the branches. If you're right under them, the branches go up. If you're looking down, the branches go down. So from this angle, our top branches are going to be pointing up and then slowly start fading down. Now I'd be spending, sometimes be closer to my easel and spend a little more time trying to get all the branches looking perfect. So I'm just feathering it out. Now I did mention that I might want to add a few hills. So I know I kind of skipped right to trees, didn't I? But this is how an artist's brain works. I'm going to add a little bit of some rolling hills towards the back. And they'll only pop up once in a while.
Could you step to your left? Yeah, just right.
Alright, so I got just a little bit of hills in the background. And this lower one was actually a cloud I was going to finish. Didn't know exactly where I wanted to put my hill. But I'm going to stay with a lighter color, teal blue with titanium white. And then I could go in and add a few more clouds if I wanted to, just to create a little bit more dimension. And sometimes I use my palette knife to create a few line clouds. Or another one I love is cirrus clouds. Just add a few lines and then just slightly blend them in.
May I ask what you're using to wipe your brush off with?
Just
Is
white.
it just a paper towel or?
Yeah, paper towel or towels or wipes,
Whites.
just a
okay.
little something wet.
Okay.
And I always love holding it because I'm always cleaning my brush, or once in a while clean it off in my turpentine. All right, I'm gonna continue with the other trees.
So that linseed oil, you add that onto your oils?
Yeah, I just mix
Oh,
it
you
in well.
dab a little bit on there and then do
Yes.
the,
Yes,
and what does that do for the, makes it,
just a little thinner, helps
Oh,
it
oh,
flow a little
okay.
better.
The liquid or the linseed oil?
Both. But the thing with liquid is it dries
Makes
faster.
it dry faster.
Linseed oil will take a day or two longer to dry. So now I'm gonna add shadows for my trees. Now paintings could become something impressive at the end or a total flop. So you guys are experiencing that with me. I might love it or hate it at the end.
I see an alpine lake.
And the farther this way I'm coming, I'm going to try to make my shadows a little darker. Alright, so because of my sunlight coming over there, I'm going to try adding my highlights. This is where the shape of the trees are gonna come in. And with plein air painting, you don't have to paint every single leaf, but it gives the idea, impression of trees in the distance. And I love painting trees in the fall time because of all the vibrant colors. This is more of a spring morning. Maybe I'll stop.
it's coming together.
How many different colors do you think you're going to use on this paintings?
This one is a fairly simple painting. Blue, greens, and then just variations and different values.
So you've got a lot of color in there, just, you're mixing it, you're done.
Yeah, the thing is I got my basic colors, my cadmium yellow, my lemon yellow, and I'm blending it on the canvas as well. Now that I got my basic color in and my shadows, I'm gonna go ahead and add a few details, tree trunks.
Looks like there's mountains in the background now.
Yeah,
Is that what you wanted to do?
yes, I wanted to add a few hills.
Oh,
I love Oregon hills, so I love adding that into my painting. And I got my angle brush, and I'm just going to add a few tree trunks. Just to imply that these are trees. I also love using my palette knife for this. I just scrape some on the side and put it around, depending how you want them. Either or, they both work. Alright, so I got the basic idea of the trees, and now I'm going to be working on the grass. So like I said, I wanted to darken this side because the light kind of just came off of the painting, and I wanted the viewer to stop there and look back. So I'm going to go with a darker green, but not as dark as my shadow area. And kind of that in. Add a little bit of liquid to help spread. And here I'm going to be blending in. See? Add a little bit of shadow towards the horizon line. Those trees are creating a little bit of shadow. Now this is a quick painting, so I'm going quickly through the process just to try to get my just to get my paint on the canvas. But I've spent a little bit more time trying to get a little bit more color on the trees. Now for highlights, like I mentioned, they are always cool colors. So here I'm using lemon yellow and a little bit of phthalo blue and white, titanium white. Alright, so now that I got that, I'm going to work a little bit on my front grass. I'm going to use ultramarine blue and cadmium yellow. Because this is in the shadow, cadmium yellow is a warm yellow, and ultramarine blue is a warm blue. A little bit more blue in this area. Anybody have any other questions?
I'm just sitting here in amazement.
Thank you.
Would you use a bigger brush for bigger areas?
Sometimes, but I think it takes away from the painting if we just have one color. This allows me to move my brush around in different angles. I don't know if you could tell from the painting, but there's actually a little bit of a path. So I want to add that in. It adds a little bit of interest to the painting and helps me and draws me in. So I'm going to follow that.
Is your studio in your house, or do you have a separate building?
Yes, in the house.
Oh, in your house.
I've heard of a lot of artists trying to set up a studio in a different area. The thing is, now you have to drive there,
Oh.
and you're not going to paint as much. But it actually helps, so it's quite available.
I want to create when I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be comfortable in another building.
So this is going to be my little pathway actually going down towards this field. And I can play around with the shape a little bit.
Is that gonna be a road?
Yes, pathway.
What would you say the focal is?
My focal point is right here in the center of the field. This is what all my lines are trying to draw into. The shape of my clouds trying to bring me down, and then the light of the trees. So everything is trying to draw me in towards the center.
You got the clouds so perfect.
Thank you for the demo.
Thank you for coming.
You're very efficient. It shows how much the Strata Challenge helped you.
Oh yes, it definitely did, and helped me
How many
paint.
times have you done it?
Twice.
Yeah.
I didn't do it this January. just busy with everything.
Yeah.
What is that challenge?
The Strata easel was invented by Brian Mark Taylor, and he challenges artists across the world to get out and paint. So you could do studio paintings or plein air paintings, but you have to paint from life. And everybody competes to win a Strata easel, but in reality, it's just to improve as an artist. And because you're joining the world in this challenge, it makes you want to go and paint every day, not have excuse that I can't do it today.
And when is it?
Every January and September. So you have to paint for the full month.
Sorry, I'm asking questions I know the answer to, just so I get on video.
Alright, that's fine. Alright, so now we can see the basic format for this painting. About my colors and how I was describing about the shadows on this side. And then we're gonna do a little bit more detail on this foreground tree. So, one thing that's important is, though I have my highlights, is to go back and actually add sky holes or bird holes or whatever you want to call them, because that's what happens in real life. You actually get light coming through in trees. I'm going to add a few of it. So while I'm looking at this, I see that I want to add a little bit more shadow towards my tree line. So I'm add a little bit of ultramarine blue to my green.
What have you noticed from painting from life? First round, what have you noticed from like doing plein air that you bring into the studio?
There's a lot more colors in the real world than you would actually think of. It has taught me to look at something and I know the colors exactly what I want to mix. Like outside those evergreens, there's phthalo blue, phthalo green with a little bit of cadmium. And I would know how to mix that color. So that's one thing I love about plein air. This one, the Gladstone Bridge, trying to mix that color. I've also done a painting of the St. John's Bridge, and mixing the color of that paint was definitely hard. But once I got it, I was really excited because they Statue of Liberty green, you know, that color. So it's very fun to challenge yourself and say, hey, I need to mix this color. What color do I need to mix for? Now I'm gonna try to go ahead. In this picture, the tree is fairly black and dark, but I want to add a little bit more branches and depth to it. I'm gonna go ahead and mix a little bit of brown, ultramarine, blue, a little bit of yellow. And see how to play around with it, just to add a little bit of more depth. And no brush stroke is ever permanent, so you play around with ideas, see what you love, what you don't love about it, and start all over. One thing with plein air painting is light always changes, so So you do kind of only want to be painting for 2 hours, and even at the end of that, the lighting might have totally changed. A cloud may have come on in front of the sun and it looks completely different. I do suggest sticking to what you first saw. Otherwise, all the other parts of your painting will not make any sense. So if I get my paints all mixed, I will go ahead and add my highlights and my darkest darks so I understand where I want them. Now, like I mentioned before, tree trunks in the shade have more of a blue tone, so I'm going to add a little bit of that. This is also like a secondary highlight in the atmosphere. And because it is a highlight, it is a cool blue, so I'm using phthalo blue and cobalt. And like somebody asked before, if I could use a paper towel, I'm going to use a little bit right here. And I want to add a little bit more of shrubbery of a lighter color. So it doesn't completely come off, but it gives me a bit more room to add maybe some other lighter colors.
Do you tone your canvases before you paint?
I don't. I know some people that do because it just brings a little bit of a uniform color through. Generally speaking, if you see artists online that tone their canvases, it's because the white doesn't reflect really well on cameras. But I don't think you need to tone it.
So explain again about plein air.
Plein air. It's a French term. French Renaissance painters went out and actually started painting what they saw. So plein air is a French word of painting in the day or outside. Yeah. So, how he mentioned, Stefan Baumann actually brought plein air kind of to America in the 80s. Because a lot of people thought that was weird, like, why would you go outside and paint? But nowadays you can see plein air painters anywhere.
Yeah, because Stefan Baumann did his paintings at Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Like Yellowstone, and then he did a painting of Castle Rock, where I think you mentioned two artists called Thomas Moran and Harry Jackson that made Yellowstone the way it is today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he was heavily inspired by Thomas Moran.
I think there's another place he painted at Lava Base National Monument. You know where that is?
No.
I think it's in Southern Oregon or something like that.
Yeah, I know he is from Mount Shasta, but he's also in Eugene sometimes.
Have you been to Europe at all? Painting or?
No, but it would be quite interesting to do that. I know Stefan Baumann does tours over there in Europe, and a few other famous artists. All right, now I've kind of got the basic composition. You can see where my highlights are and how the sun is coming through, lighting up my clouds, and the direction of how the trees are lit up. This is basic paint put on my canvas. I would spend a couple more hours if I had the time. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea of how I set up my palette and start painting of what I see. Here I'm matching my colors to my photograph, but in real life you could mix a color on your paintbrush and compare it to the outside. And that's what you would want to do. Are there any questions about my painting process?
It's just wonderful.
The results are
Wow.